Hello, happy Thursday. Hopefully everybody is doing well. Pop in and say hello. Let me know how your day is going if you are on, and we will get going. I'm just making sure that I'm live in the group, and we've got a fun talk today. I'm super excited to get this. This is our kickoff for the inflammation series that we are going to be going through for the next 4 weeks. And at the end, I'll kind of give you guys a little preview of where we're going to be going. Let me just see. I can never see myself live in here. And okay, so today we're going to be talking about healing your inflammation and what to eat and what to avoid for less pain and inflammation and fatigue. So if you struggle, with pain, if you feel like you're inflamed, you've been told you're inflamed, you've been kind of hearing the whole thing. I know everybody kind of throws around inflammation, and a lot of people don't know what is going on and what that means. Sorry, I'm just making sure that I am on. Okay, yes, now I can see me, I think. Sorry, this is always so confusing that when I can never see myself. If you're on, say hello, because I want to be able to answer your guys' questions. It's saying I'm on, but I can't seem to find myself. Oh, there I am. Okay. All right, and I know that some of you are. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about inflammation. So what to eat and what to avoid for less pain and inflammation. And I think a lot of times people don't really understand the mechanism behind inflammation, just like with stress and just like with pain. We hear inflammation and it's like a lot of people think like we don't want it. We want to completely like obliterate it. But the thing is there's healthy amount of, as I like to call, like productive. Like it serves a purpose. Pain serves a purpose. Stress serves a purpose. Inflammation serves a purpose, and protecting ourselves. Because if we didn't have that, and we didn't have the sensation of pain or inflammation or stress, we quite frankly wouldn't be able to live. So I'm going to be going through and really helping you make very clear what good inflammation is, and then what are some of the contributing factors that take inflammation from being, again, productive and helpful and healing to being very problematic, where it can lead to things like chronic disease, chronic pain, autoimmune issues, and so forth. So we are going to be, so today is kind of like a bird's eye view of, inflammation, pain, and the process. And then also it's going to help lay the foundations for the week to hence, because I'm going to be going in a little bit deeper to some of the topics that we cover. And then at the end of today's talk, I'll be outlining what the next 4 weeks, what we're going to go by week. And I know many of you have said that there are some topics that you're super excited to dive into. So today what we're going to cover what the heck inflammation is, common diseases, dysfunction, and that cause inflammation, or that inflammation causes, and then the 12 key steps to managing inflammation, how you actually can measure inflammation. You can measure it by something called C-Reactive Protein, which you get on a blood chem panel, looking at your essential fatty acids, making sure that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is looking good, and you can get that on a blood spot fatty acid test. I'll talk about more of this later. Testing your pH to see how acidic or alkaline your body is, and this is really important and tightly controlled in the body. When we are in states of being more acidic, we're more prone to things like injury, poor recovery, and cancers can live in an acidic state, as well as that's where we see a lot of like bacterial overgrowth, things like H. pylori and bacterial overgrowth can happen and can lead to things like SIBO and so forth. So checking how you can check your pH with your saliva, your urine, how you can check how your intestinal barrier function is looking at oxidative stress markers, the mineral status, and then how do we control inflammation using things like diet, making sure your digestion is working good, making sure that we have a good attitude, how we're managing stress, making sure that we're right-sizing exercise. So again, not overloading and stressing the body too much, but that again, we're moving our body so that we can, again, circulate good nutrients and help kind of flush out any areas that may be inflamed. Looking at also, again, environmental toxin exposures. This is something that a lot of people don't think about. And a lot of things that they're exposed to on a daily basis, whether that's, your makeup, your personal hair products, even just, how food is processing, whether, you're going organic or not. There's a lot of toxins that we're exposed to throughout the day. And it really, those little micro amounts really add up over time and can be the difference of, being in chronic pain, having chronic fatigue, being inflamed, and how your body is able to heal and bounce back. And then I'll also be sharing just what are some good inflammatory foods, anti-inflammatory foods, what are the inflammatory foods, and we'll talk about some helpful herbs. And I'm also going to talk about, over-the-counter medications, common things that people are reaching for when they're in pain, when they're stiff, swollen, and what are the kind of the downsides to taking those things, even just in the acute sense, or just popping a couple of those, Tylenols or an Advil, or people that I know that are taking multiple times a day for, week on end. Is that really, as bad as you're hearing? And the answer is yes. So my name is Dr. Yvonne Castillo. If you are new here, welcome. I'm an integrative pain specialist, doctor of physical therapy, and certified health and wellness coach, gluten-free practitioner, and Pilates instructor. And I help women over 40 get pain-free naturally and get back to the active and unlimited life they deserve. So let's dive right on it. So, and again, as we're going through this, pop in your questions. And if you're listening back on replay, just give me a hashtag replay and pop your questions in, and I will be happy to answer them to you as well. And again, if you're on the email list, you'll get a replay of this as well as some of the resources that I'm going to be talking about towards you. I got some recipes and some other things that I'll be sending your guys away. So make sure that you're on the email list. So let's talk about what is pain and inflammation, and why is it, so important that we know. As we know, like inflammation is, it is literally, the research has confirmed that it is really the root of all kind of diseases, and it's so rampant in our society. I mean, how many people do you know where they're dealing with some sort of a condition as itis, a bursitis, a tendonitis, arthritis, colitis? How many people do you know, or have you personally dealt with? It seems like everybody is. I mean, they're having some sort of kind of out of control inflammation that is causing some sort of inflammatory disease. And you'll go to the doctor, and you'll say, oh, I have pain in my joints. They're like, okay, you get the diagnosis of arthritis. And that basically means it's okay, whatever is preceding that itis is kind of like what's going wrong and is very localized to that area. So, and inflammation is the most prevalent cause of pain. So we'll kind of start from the basics and the foundations here. So when our body perceives that we are in pain, there's a physiologic process going on. And what's happening as like the nerve endings that are part of our systems, whose job is like they're to sense like chemical stressors, structural stressors, mechanical stressors in that area. And they give the feedback to the brain, okay, what's going on? What is that threshold? So you stretch a muscle beyond what it's meant, or you're exposed to, like when we say like the chemical exposures, that could be, some sort of toxin coming in the body, but it also can be kind of internally what's happening within your body. And all this will become more clear when we actually talk about like the cascade of inflammation. And so that's what's going on. So you have these sensors in your body, and it will tell your brain, okay, we need to stop. There's kind of some sort of damage going on, and we need to protect itself. So it's really, pain is really your body's warning system. I'm sure you've heard people say this is akin to having like check engine light go on in your car, or having like a smoke detector and it starts to beep. That's the same thing. It's sensing that there's something going awry in the system, and it's saying like, hey, like we need to bring this to attention and kind of see what imbalance is going on, so it doesn't keep persisting and then lead to, again, car totally breaking down, the house going up in flames. So that's the thing. And if you were on and you joined me for the Uncover Your Pain live series that we did, I talked about this a lot, and what a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to pain, but it's also your emotions and how you perceive pain. It's not just the physical or the chemical, but there is studies and shown, and when you look at how the brain processes pain, the negative emotions, the fear that's associated with that, how that starts to light up the amygdala, which is your fear emotional center in the brain. And that's where the problem of like chronic pain and chronic inflammation, people will get this like hypersensitivity. So it doesn't take a whole lot where, what was just maybe a small stimulus now then gives them a really amped up response. And we see that a lot in chronic conditions, especially when it comes to pain, inflammation, autoimmunity. So that's why we're going to talk a little bit more about our attitudes and our stress, even of our perception around, is it possible for me to break this cycle of pain, to break the cycle of inflammation? Your emotions play such a huge role in it. And I've seen this time and time again from the thousands of people that I've worked with. So an example is, okay, so you fall and you hurt your shoulder. And if you suppress that pain, you grab the handful of the leaf, you aren't going to get that sensation of pain anymore. And the problem with that is pain serves a purpose, so you don't keep on irritating what's going wrong. And we'll get into the side effects a little bit later, but that can be not really bad. And there's some disorders too where people lack that sensation of pain, and they're really, as you can imagine, prone to injury as well. So I mean, you hurt your shoulder, if you don't have that sensation of pain, you constantly are sleeping on it, or you're constantly reaching overhead over and over because you're no longer getting that signal, it can be very problematic. So what is inflammation? So when we see something that's inflamed, there's kind of classic signs. So we see the swelling, we see the redness, and we may feel some heat. And that's because what's happening is your body's sending these chemotactic factors, this fleet of lymphocytes, things that are going to go clean up the area there. And also there's more blood flow going to the area. So that's why it gets red. It's why it gets hot. It's why it gets swollen, because there's only so much space, especially when you're looking at a joint. And that's why it'll swell up as well, because there's more things going to the area. And that's why we see those are kind of classic signs of inflammation, especially in acute inflammation. So that's more of like the instance that's qualified, kind of anything upward to, a couple weeks, anything that's extending beyond kind of 8 weeks, 10 weeks, that's more associated to kind of chronic pain, chronic inflammation. When we're looking at the process the body goes through in healing kind of an acute injury, it should happen with kind of in that time period in through there. So, I always tell people, and this, I've, spent a lot of time in my early career, working in clinic. I've seen a lot of surgical procedures, and to see inflammation, what it looks like in the body when they put the scopes in, they drain it and they take the cameras around. I tell people it's like literally inflammation in your body literally looks like, think of it as like dirty bath water. All those toxins are super toxic. You see all the tissue around it gets super red and inflamed. And I tell people it's like literally like you're like someone, like I said, when you look at the joint or you look at the tissues, it looks like someone's dry shaved on the inside. It's like, it's so disgusting, but it also makes you really appreciate and have reverence for the healing process. And so many people are like, oh, they have the mindset of like, oh, well, it's already injured, I can't do that much more damage. And I can't tell you how many people have had an injury, arthritis of their knee, tore an ACL, tore a rotator cuff, and they're like, nah, it's already gone, it doesn't matter. And it's like, no, you can take a place from where it's like damaged a lot, and you can do a heck of a whole lot more damage to where the surgery is even more involved, and the ceiling for the ability to repair and bounce back is more. So again, inflammation serves a purpose in through there, and to really appreciate it. Again, you could probably Google and YouTube videos if you really want to look at like inflammation and what it looks like to the body. But I think it's really important because, again, like I said, you have that reverence of like being kind to your body, not push it, also not to ignore it, and also not to just mask it with, Advil and painkillers and stuff like that. So really, really important. And also too, really important to, again, address the root cause for what is causing the pain and the inflammation too, because there is structural damage that is happening when we are staying in a state of prolonged pain and prolonged inflammation. Like I say, dirty, toxic bathwater to your body that your body is just sitting in. Your body can't function. That's why then we start to see systemic processes happening. So that is why it's so important. So, when we have that inflammation as well, it's irritating to those pain receptors. Like I said, that's that toxic, dirty bathwater that it's sitting in. So, when they're giving that signal back to the brain, you get the perception of, hey, something's injured, we need some attention over here. So the question is, do you think that we want to stop the process of inflammation? So pop in the chat. I would love to know, should we stop the process? So yes, the answer is no. We want to be able to manage inflammation. We want to be able to support the process of inflammation, because the process of inflammation is the process of healing in the body. And we want to kind of keep it in check. We don't want to let go out of control, or as I like to say, go rogue, and where it keeps on persisting, but where it's productive and it has a purpose, which is to heal the body, to repair the body, to repair the tissues that it may be damaged, or the chemical imbalances that may be happening in the body. And if we permanently get rid of that inflammation and we never allowed it to happen again, we would again cease to exist. And so the inflammation does really protect us as well. And there's a lot of reason why this happened, and we'll discuss a couple of them too. But the nutritional, the biochemical imbalances, and not having that right chemistry within your body is a really big factor that most people don't overlook. And again, they're just patching it up with pills. So again, we have these like these little kind of biochemical scavengers, firefighters in there. And when you have imbalances in the chemistry, you can kind of like shut down their ability to act. You're kind of paralyzing the firefighters. And when we talk about next week, I have pictures and graphics to really go into this kind of inflammatory cascade, which I think will be really, really helpful. But the good news is that you can control those imbalances by what you eat, how you think, how you move, so how you exercise, and then breath work is so important. So again, those little receptors are called nociceptors. So those are your pain receptors, and they're super sensitive. And again, they're sensitive to mechanical stresses. So that's pressure in a joint, that's stretch and overstretch of the muscle, but they're even more sensitive to chemical stress and the chemical stress that is happening around your body. When you're like, okay, what's the chemical stress? Those are kind of the nutritive properties and like the pH balance and all the stuff that's happening inside your body. And we'll go over that step by step here. So what causes inflammation? So we've already talked about like the purpose, when inflammation is purposeful, and it's designed so that it can heal tissue structures that are damaged in through there. And what causes inflammation? It's usually, like I said, an insult, a trauma to the body, where the body is trying to protect itself. And that involves the immune system as well. When we think about the immune system protecting us from, colds and flus, but it also it's our protective barrier. It's our skin, and so far. Then it's responsible for, again, managing and modulating the inflammatory process. And when we have things like oxidative stress to the body, and again, if you've heard of oxidative stress, I'm sure you've heard of oxidative stress. If you have, say yes. It's when something called free radicals are produced. It's kind of like the exhaust. You want to think the exhaust or fumes that are happening. And it's a normal process. You get free radicals produced when you exercise. It's an exhaust for kind of the mitochondria, which are the energy factories of your body. But the problem is when it's not getting those exhausts isn't getting cleaned up and cleared out. So, and a lot of things can cause oxidative stress. So one thing, for example, is like when we eat fats that have been heated at high temperatures, and I'll be emailing you guys a little chart, because people make this mistake of cooking with the wrong fats and at the wrong temperature. So they actually create they actually oxidize them, or they're eating hydrogenated fats, which are really, really, really toxic. And the fats, when they break down, they form these free radicals. So again, think exhaust in your body, which then damages the tissues within your body and causes inflammation. And it also compromises your cells. And we're going to talk about this more next week when we talk about why it's so important to have, healthy cell membranes that are made up of fats, and why the fats that we eat are so super important. And when we're not eating good fats, and when the types of fats are not in the right ratio, we run into, again, poor recovery, inflammation, disease processes, and autoimmunity. And we can't get the good nutrients into the cells, but then we also can't cleanse our cells and get the toxins out. So again, when people are thinking of like, why am I not healing? Why am I still achy, sore, and tired and chronically fatigued? That's why we really need to look at kind of what's happening at the cellular level. And there's so many things that we can support ourselves, again, nutritionally, lifestyle, exercise, stress management, all those things, and play a really, really big role. So what also happens during oxidative stuff is we have damage and then depletion to our antioxidants. Those are kind of, again, what are counter that oxidative stress. We want as much antioxidants in our body as possible. Oh, hi, Keon. Nice to see you. And you've probably seen that. And there's like a big old thing, like I know, like, 10 years ago, it was like they were saying, tossing antioxidants and everything. It was like, oh, this soda has antioxidants, this antioxidant, this. You're like, oh, it's a natural like fruit. Of course it's going to have antioxidant, but it's such a buzzword. Same thing they're doing with like, what is it? Like going gluten-free. They're like gluten-free apples. You're like, yeah, it's funny. But when we talk about antioxidants, so that's, vitamin A, vitamin E, and then vitamin C are really, really important. Those are all antioxidants, and they're super powerful. Yeah, so that's such a great comment. So yeah, nutrition, and I'm going to post, and I would love to know, and I would love for you guys to answer in there, like, what do you think are like the 3 like healthiest things, or like the healthiest meals that you eat, and then what are like the 3 least healthiest things that you eat? And it's so surprising to me, so what people think is super healthy that isn't. And it's just nice. So that it's a fun kind of game to play. We'll have this conversation in the group too, but I would love for you guys to pop it in. And that is for so many people, especially because there's so much information out there. It's like, oh, keto, oh, this, like, oh, gluten-free, go dairy-free. And for so many people, they just like, what am I even going to be left to eat? But I do want to stress, just like anything, like you're an individual person, and what may be okay for somebody may not be okay for you. And that even goes with like the quote unquote, like healthy foods, like things like fruits, like how certain fruits for where you're at right now, you may have a food sensitivity to it because of how you're eating, a lot of different things going on. Or it may spike up your blood sugar right now. But I take my clients, when I work with them, we look at this and we see what are the right foods for you. And then if they are having food sensitivities, why are you having those sensitivities? And it's not always like, now you're just going to be left eating cardboard and you're only going to be left eating these 3 foods. We need to evaluate, well, why are you, tolerating or not tolerating foods? And looking at the deeper picture. So going through something like a very structured elimination diet. Another thing too is looking at blood sugar balancing. That's a really, really big thing. And we'll talk about this with inflammation, but a lot of people will respond differently to bananas, to pineapples, even to people, like a lot of people think like whole wheat toast is super healthy, when it's like, nope. When you look at how it sure is, it's akin to eating a Snickers bar. But people don't think that. They think a healthy breakfast is, whole wheat toast with some orange juice, with my coffee, with my bulletproof coffee. And you're like, we need to evaluate that a little bit more. And also too, going on, and I think that's why there's so much power in having a food log. And when I work with my clients, we do it for 3 days because some people get overwhelmed, but it's really, really powerful to see, what are you eating? How is your body responding to it? When you're looking at, what are your bowel movements after? Like all those things will play into telling you, like, are you actually getting the nutrients that you need from your diet? Or are you just throwing gasoline on the fire by what you're eating? And so much of it is like, what can heal us, can hurt us, goes with exercise, goes with nutrition, all those things is, there's a balance. And really, it's really important to find out what is working, what works for you, and knowing that may change over time, that you're not going to be, at the same place. Your body's going to need different things at different time as you're aging, as you may be going and doing marathons, as you may be more sedentary, or maybe going through a really stressful time. It's like you'll need to give your body different things or support your body in different ways. You may be having more exposures to toxins and stuff. So if that makes sense, like pop it in. I would love to know your thoughts about that, but it's such a great question, Kay. Thank you for answering that and being honest with saying that, because so many people really do. They get lost with the nutrition piece, and it's really simple. And there's like a strategic way of kind of going about it. And that's one thing I help my clients with. So 2 of the most important antioxidants, and let me know if you've heard these before, that really protect us against injury and illnesses, and you may want to write this down, but is superoxide dismutase and glutathione. So these antioxidants, unfortunately, are depleted really, really rapidly when we are in states of oxidative stress because of the free radical damage. And interesting, there's actually some genetic defects, if you've ever heard the word like SNP, And researchers have found that there's certain pathways that are for producing and replenishing the antioxidant called glutathione, but it doesn't properly like operate in certain people with the GST. If you've ever heard of like the MTHFR SNP, these are single nucleotide polymorphisms. And that's why, like, when I work with my client, we do a 23andMe, and there's a way to go through and see if people have certain things. And that's where some people don't, like for the COMT and for other things, it's like, okay, they may not process caffeine. They may not process vitamin A differently. So we need to just give them certain things to help them support those pathways. It doesn't mean like you're totally screwed. It's just mean like, okay, well, we just need to support you to make sure that, you know, with the MTHFR, it has to deal with methylation. It's like, well, you know, a lot of people are just downing all these B vitamins and they don't have them in the right form. And they can actually lead to more anxiety or things like that. And so that's why it's really important to work with somebody that has a good grasp on this, and also not just to reach for every kind of thing you see in the headlines. When people are like, go get your B shots and this, and that. It's like, okay, well, do you really need it? So many people are over supplementing and they're not really they're giving their body sometimes what they don't need and not getting what they do need. And same thing with supplements. Those are supplements. It's supposed to just fill in gaps. And you really shouldn't be on the same supplement regime your whole entire life. Like, that's just absolutely bananas to me. So yeah, I would love to know your thoughts on that. So if you have a tendency towards inflammation, you may have, you know, a genetic defect or something. But again, like I said, it doesn't mean that you're doomed. It just means that you have to give yourself just a little support in a different way. So what are some of the diseases that are caused by inflammation? I would love for you to play along, just toss them in there. What are some things in there? Again, like I said, it's anything almost with an itis at the end, but allergies is one, arthritis, you know, appendicitis, bursitis, which I mentioned. Fibromyalgia is one, doesn't have the itis on it, but it is inflammatory. Gastritis, something like headaches, tendinitis too. Those are all kind of forms of inflammation into there. And, you know, tendinitis can be more of, again, like that, like an acute problem, like when you've overworked something, doing a repetitive motion, you've lifted something. So you've caused an irritation, you've caused inflammation in your tendons. Sometimes it will go away, but then sometimes it can go out of control. Again, if it's, you know, perpetually kind of re-aggravated over and over and over again. And I see this all the time. Or people kind of heal a little bit and they haven't addressed the underlying issues, which again can be structural, biochemical, and again, kind of the brain-based belief thing is that they haven't corrected the posture, they haven't gotten the strength, they haven't worked on the form of how they're using their arms. So that's where they run into, now I've got the tendinitis again and again and again. But the problem is as that is prolonged and keeps on persisting, it starts to create other compensations in the body. And that's why, you know, people, basic quote unquote, start to feel like they're falling apart. So that's a problem. Just checking in. I'm just reading. Okay, coffee, lunch, using leftovers, apples, cheese, and almonds for dinner. I always have cooked meat storage. I'm just reading, not too big on sweets. Yeah, I'll definitely. Yeah. Those are great comments. I'm gonna definitely go in there and we'll talk about that too. And you're not alone, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. So. Again, the bigger problem is, like I said, a lot of people, when they have these imbalances, need to understand that the chemistry controls the inflammation, and an injury that should be self-limiting and healed with just, you know, again, 7 to 10 days, but it goes on and on and on and on and on. And your body should have been able to be like, okay, it's healed now, and to kind of like turn down the dial and on the inflammation, but it's still like pumping all those little chemical messengers to the site. And also, I mean, they've done so many studies, like they've injected healthy knees with like saline or things like that. And it shuts off your body's ability to contract a muscle, to have a stable joint. So that's like if you've ever had buckling of your knees, or like you've ever heard like, oh, the pain that brings you to your knees is your body can only process one thing at one time. So if it has that pain signal and it's like, don't put weight on it, that's why people like legs will buckle. Or same thing too, when you look at an EMG, like the muscle contraction is less when there's swelling around it. So again, if you are chronically inflamed and you have that extra swelling, also to having those toxins around the area around a joint, it starts to degrade the tissue, it starts to degrade the ligaments, it starts to degrade the bone. So you can see that, you know, an inflamed arthritic area, when it's still sitting in that sea of, again, dirty bathwater, it's just toxic. It literally is like almost like if you think of like pouring acid on like a pipe or something, that's what it starts to look like. So we want to cleanse it out, which is why I go back to when people always ask me, oh, what exercise is the best for my neck pain? What exercise is for my shoulder pain? It's like, I really would be doing them a disservice if I'm like, oh, do this, this, and this. And then they feel like they're okay, they get some relief, but they really haven't gone to the deeper levels, or then they'll be more susceptible to an injury later on. Again, that's why whenever you have pain, whenever there's imbalances in your body, it happens in those three areas. Again, like the biomechanical, that structural, that posture, how you're moving, and then also biochemically. So your hormones, your neurotransmitters, your immune system, all those different types of change, the nutrition that's happening. And then also, again, our attitudes, so our beliefs and what's happening in our brain. Those three things are what, if you're only addressing one of those, you will stay in a state where you'll keep on riding that cycle and that hamster wheel of not getting better and being limited, and then it eventually just kind of spiraling down. So how do you measure inflammation? And I will make sure that I will make a little chart for you guys, and I'll send this to you guys in an email because it's super important. And I'll give you guys links so that you guys can get these direct access to some of these tests, because I think they're really important. One of them is you can measure inflammation. If you've heard of this, like drop it in the chats, but it's a blood test you can add. You can make sure it's on your blood panel. They normally do, but I'm always so shocked by when people give me their blood panels, like how they're missing so many of the critical markers that conventional doctors just don't do. So that's something that I work on with my clients to make sure that they have that comprehensive panel, so we can actually have that bigger picture to connect the dots and see, okay, what's actually causing this and how can we support you so you can heal your body. So C-reactive protein, which again is in the standard blood panel that doctors will run if they suspect some sort of inflammatory or an autoimmune disease. And I'll make sure I put a link that you can on your own just get this. You don't have to go to a doctor, and you could just ask for a blood panel and through there. And you can work with someone. I work with people. I can read the blood chem, and we go through a comprehensive evaluation and really get to what's imbalances, what's causing, what can be improved. Another way is to measure the fats in the body. And we're going to be talking about fats a lot more next week, but you're looking at the balance between the fats controlled, where you're either going to be in an inflammatory or pro-inflammatory, which is promoting inflammation, or an anti-inflammatory state. And we want to strive to be in more of an anti-inflammatory state. And you would do this by getting a blood spot fatty acid test. And that will tell us, because you have different types of fats that do different things. And again, I got pictures and all that stuff, and that's what we're going to focus on next week. And then there's another test called the intestinal barrier function. And that's where it's to see how well our intestines are keeping us protected from the bad stuff. So again, we're taking food in that there can be a lot of bacteria, a lot of things going, or even when we start to have that intestinal permeability where it's not totally closed, even good things like, the food that's supposed to be going through then starts to leak out. And that's where people can run into a lot of food sensitivities, because what should be your digested meats or your digested corn or even, broccoli, it's like going out there, and then your body sees it and it's like attacking it because it's like, that's foreign. So that's where people will develop food sensitivities to these, quote unquote, healthy foods. And they can't understand why every time I have a kale salad or I have broccoli, like I get bloated, I get gassy, I feel like, all these, different things start to happen. So it's really important. And then, so you can do that. That's called a C-Reactive test that you can do. Another way to indirectly measure, and this is something that's really important, is to test your pH. So basically test how acid or alkaline your blood is. And this has to be kept at a very tight level. And you do this by just testing strips. You do it with your saliva and your urine. You do it at a certain kind of time frame throughout the day. I take my clients through this process. It's really, really important. And our blood tends to be at a pH about 7.3. And it's measuring basically the hydrogen ions in the body. Neutral pH is 7, acid is anything below 7, and alkaline is anything above 7. And our body best functions in a slightly alkaline environment. So it's a little bit above that 7. So that 7.3 seems to be like the ideal. And it's easy to do this, like to get strips and stuff like that. And I have handouts for this. And the problem is when we get to too much acid in the body, again, Cancer thrives in an acid environment. So that's why it's really important to keep this at a very thing. But also what happens when the body senses we're in an acidic state, it's going to look at something to buffer it. So where it goes to, so tune in ladies, it goes into your bones, because your bones are just like the Fort Knox of minerals. And that's where you'll see people get prone to things like osteoporosis, because what's happening is they basically start leaching those minerals from their bone to buffer being in an acidic state. So really, really, really important. And then also there's another enzyme called the Salivarium Amylase, which is an enzyme that helps us digest starches. And tissues like your liver, your GI tract, and your mucosal membranes do better when they're in, again, more of that alkaline state. So when the body is at risk, when it's trying to become more acidic, it draws on those alkaline buffers from those tissues, from the blood. So again, blood that is acidic is life-threatening, and the body will do whatever it can to buffer it. So again, it's going in, it's getting calcium from the bone, it's getting buffers, it's getting all of those minerals out. So really, really important to be in a more of an alkaline state. And that will be a talk that we'll go through deeper in the weeks to come. And then autoimmune disease. So when we think about kind of our gut, that comes in from one end and leaves out the other, but some of it also gets absorbed into our bloodstream. And your intestinal tract is actually your kind of main line of defense. So thinking, bringing in all those foreign particles, your body really has to identify, like, is this good? Is this bad? Is this going to serve me, or is this trying to attack me? And your body has certain kind of genetic markers and protein structures that are unique to you. And it looks a certain way. So like if you have food, going down, your body has to decide, like, okay, is this okay? Is this myself? Or is this not? Is this something that I have to attack? Is this food? Can I take this in? And autoimmune issues tend to happen when our tissues get in the way of kind of those bad invaders, and then when they start to attacking a molecule that is like of a similar structure to like a body part and through there. And our immune system works in it's almost like you have a lock and a key in through there. And so like if a bacteria, say, comes in and it has a certain structure, but then you also have like an antibody with a protein structure that's the same, that looks the same as that they'll fit together. And that antibody will then embrace that kind of foreign pathogen and mark it so that the rest of the immune system can attack it. But what happens is there's so many different variations of these proteins that can make, and when they're similar between kind of the bad guys and ourself, the body, and that could be, the lining of our gut. We see this a lot in thyroid issues, in the stomach, in the pancreas that, produces insulin, that our antibodies start to attack our own system. And that is when we start to see these kind of autoimmune processes too. And this is called this kind of, and there's also like, especially with like gluten and dairy, there's something called molecular mimicry, but those proteins look very similar to the thyroid. And what happens is when you're eating gluten, when you're eating dairy, your body's like, if you already have it, and it starts to go after the thyroid into there. So really important, especially when I work with clients and helping them with thyroid issues, it's like getting off of gluten and dairy is not like, it's a non-negotiable and through there. So hi, Lynn, nice to see you. And it is believed that so much of autoimmune diseases really begin in the gut, and having that healthy gut is super important, which means eating those good foods to help support the gut is really good, making sure that your microbiome of the gut is balanced, that you have the good bacteria. And again, there's not really good or bad bacteria, but it's all about having the balance and having a diversity in there, which is really important. Okay, so now we're going to talk about drugs and inflammation. Okay, so there's several. I mean, you guys are very aware, over-the-counter drugs that you can get to help manage inflammation, aspirin, Tylenol, those are many of the common ones. And they're called, you've heard the kind of term NSAIDs, so non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So steroids, when you going in for a steroid injection, those are considered like the big bazookas in through there. And the NSAIDs are kind of considered like, little handguns into there. And if you want to look at terms of like, when there's something happening, going to go into war into there. So some of the other NSAIDs are like Advil, Motrin, and Aleve, and those are considered like an older class of non-steroidal inflammatories. The newer class of NSAIDs are called COX-2 inhibitors, and that happens to do the pathway that they act on. And we'll be talking more and more about those, because they're synthetic ones, so ones that are kind of manufactured, and the natural ones that we can look to herbs and food sources to actually get those natural kind of anti-inflammatory things instead of popping pills. And yet there's several herbs that, again, act as those COX-2, and we'll be going through this pathway in depth next week. So in this new drugs are kind of, if you've heard of Celebrex or Vioxx, and you've probably seen those, or maybe even been prescribed those. And so how they do is they work better and they have less side effects than the NSAIDs and those kind of previous NSAIDs, but how much damage they really do is still kind of out. You know, everybody, when they have the new drugs, everybody gets really excited. Okay, great, it's taking away pain, it's taking away inflammation. But then, you know, like 10, 15 years down the road, we kind of find all these. You're like, oh, it's totally killing the kidney, it's killing the liver and so forth. So I think you would probably much rather go, is there a more natural way to manage my pain without the side effects? You know, natural herbs, supplements, foods. So think about it. So like, if we take kind of a chemical that somebody synthesized in a lab, why would that be any different from getting it from food? And the reason is when it's in nature, the active ingredient that's packed that actually does it. So like white willow bark is one example, for Tylenol, that's the same thing. But also when it occurs in nature, it has antioxidants and it has oxidants and it has bioflavonoids. It has something called a demulcent, which helps it's something that creates like soothing for the lining of the stomach that actually helps. You can think of aloe vera, for example, like how helpful that is in soothing for the skin. So when you take one of these plants that has the COX-2 inhibitors, it has kind of all those things that are very healthy with it that prevents those side effects that you would get just from taking just the active ingredient, which you would take in kind of an over-the-counter drug. And that's where a lot of the drugs are based on, you know, chemicals that actually occur in nature. They're just extracted and distilled down. And again, but unfortunately, they've taken away a lot of those good counterpoints that come back in it. So again, when we think of everything was perfectly designed for a reason and stuff like that, when we start to kind of mess with it, we run into problems. So we talked a little bit about the diets. We've talked about the fats. And we talked about kind of minerals and vitamins. So want to talk a little bit more about kind of gluten and dairy. And again, this is a very big topic, but just to, again, bird's eye view for everything, we'll talk about this right now. So dairy contains arachidonic acid, which is pro-inflammatory and promotes the inflammation cascade. It also has a protein called casein, and casein and gluten have, we've seen it over and over in the research studies as it being kind of pro-inflammatory, causing inflammation. And there have been a lot of studies that you're seeing out there, the role kind of in gluten and casein in inflammation, autoimmune disease, depression, autism, and thyroid disease. So, why are these bad? Why are these problematic? So the problem is that these proteins that get broken down and the kind of the peptides that come off of them, they'll trigger opiate reactions as well. So when they get into the bloodstream in the brain, they put us on this high, and it's almost like someone you just like almost took something like morphine or cocaine. It's one of the reasons why, sugars and starches are so addictive. It's maybe like if you've ever had a piece of bread, it's like, I can't just have one. I want to have the whole entire loaf. Or you just crave more and more. Like same thing with cheese. It's like you're eating the entire brick of Tillamook cheese. Or, it's like, whoop, that whole, that half pint is like gone. You're like, why does that happen? And it has to do with these proteins that are in the food, and that they're called gluteomorphins. So same thing, like, addicted to morphine. And it's interesting that we think of like, okay, cocaine, opium, opium comes from a poppy flower, from the seeds. Cocaine comes from the cocoa plant. It's like mixed down. Same thing with sugar. Sugar comes from sugar cane. It's just distilled down. So same thing too, that it has a very similar properties to kind of drugs. It's just, we kind of are flipping it on its head because it comes, nicely packaged up in a cereal box with a cartoon on it. So we don't think of it as being as addictive or as harmful for the body as we would and kind of shamefully look on cocaine or morphine and stuff like that. But it has the same thing. There's been so many studies that have been done, where rats prefer sugar over sex or anything like that. So highly, highly, highly addicted. So, anybody that does have like an autoimmune disease, like really, it's so important to get off the dairy and the wheat. And it may be a long-term thing, it may be a short-term thing, but that's really why it's always important to test and not guess, and to work with someone that can really look through it. And so many people, they think of, dairy allergies and wheat allergies, like, oh, that'll just show up in the gut as like bloating and that, but it can show up as brain fog, and it can attack the brain. It goes straight up. It can show up in achy, sore joints and all that. It does not have to show up as gut issues. And we'll talk about this in depth at a later point in time, but so many people think of like, oh, because I'm ingesting it, it's going to show up as like constipation or diarrhea, and that's not the case. A majority of the time, it actually shows up in people in brain, things like leading to Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, all those diseases actually show up, is it's actually coming from what we're ingesting in as well. So really, really important. And a lot of people don't think it, just on one bite in through there that it won't hurt them. Okay, so stress, mood, and mindset, and how does that play a role in inflammation? So, our attitudes, the stress levels, exercise, environmental exposures, all play a role in inflammation. So the neurotransmitters are the chemicals that our brain produces to communicate. So some neurotransmitters are excitatory, and then some are like calming, which makes make us feel like just nice and calm and peaceful. And then others make us kind of like amped up and angry and through there. So when we're feeling like angry or we have those negative emotions, we've got transmitters that are not great for our system, and our immune system picks up on that. And it starts to change kind of the ratio of, certain cells, like our immune cells in the body called T helper cells and T suppressor cells, which are very important for maintaining immune balance. But when those ratios are off, it can lead to inflammation. So, and again, who's here has heard of cortisol? I'm sure everybody's heard of cortisol, right? So when that gets released when we're stressed out, as well as the neurotransmitter adrenaline, so that gives us like that rush. Cortisol is really, it wreaks a lot of havoc. And adrenaline can kind of come and go real quickly. But when we see like prolonged cortisol, that steroid in the body, it's really down. It's catabolic, so it means that it breaks down. It starts to break down muscle tissue, break down bone tissue. So when you're thinking about, okay, what the heck can cause, osteoporosis or, loss of strength, when people start to, lose muscle mass, that'll affect your metabolism as well. And that's why people struggle with chronic weight gain, blood sugar dysregulation. So it's really, really important that we don't want to be in a chronic state of where cortisol is just pumping through our bodies. It can also, again, impact the brain as well. And then when we think about exercise, again, that's always when we want to right size everything. Exercise is really important, but in excess, again, it can actually contribute to inflammation. So that's always where everything in balance and honoring where you're at right now. So, doing heavy duty training, people that are, just logging, I love to run, and it's like, marathon training, heavy weight training and stuff like that, without, offsetting that with, anti-inflammatory foods, maybe taking herbs to help, with the healing. Maybe that may be drinking turmeric water after exercise, eating ginger, eating lots of leafy greens, all those things. You want to balance it out versus most people are like, running marathons and carbo loading, right? There's a big problem there. Same thing too. People are lifting heavy weights, and what are they doing? They're told to just like eat this crazy keto, slabs of steak and stuff like that. Super inflammatory. And once we dive into the foods over the next couple of weeks, you'll see that a little bit more. So likewise too, if we're just couch potatoes and we're sitting around all the time, we're not moving our body, we're not getting the good nutrients and all those good factors to kind of, lubricate our joints and all that stuff, then that can also lead to inflammation as well. So we'll just kind of recap here. So we talked about kind of making sure that you have, the right fats in your body. And we're going to talk about this more in depth next week about having the right balance of omega-3s to omega-6s. And with, our standard American diet, most people are really tipping the scales at those omega-6 fats. And we're going to talk about those next week, versus having more of the omega-3s, which are, your flax seeds, your walnuts, your chia seeds, your hemp seeds. And we get a lot of the omega-6s from like sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, almonds, pumpkin seeds, processed meats and other things. We'll also tip the scales more to the 6s, and I'll we'll have nice pictures to walk you guys through it so you can really see how you can make sure that you're in balance, and also how you can support yourself with certain vitamins and minerals, and make it super easy. And then you want to make sure that you're incorporating foods that are rich in antioxidants into your diet. And those include, your vitamin C, your vitamin E, beta carotene, dark colored grapes, blueberries, red berries, nuts, walnuts, Brazil nuts, dark leafy greens, broccoli, spinach. Those are all really good antioxidant rich foods. And then making sure that you're having a good abundance of minerals in your diet. So, unfortunately, so many people, about 18 and 20 people are deficient in the minerals that we need. We see that a lot because our soils are depleted. So people aren't getting, and even though they may be taking in a lot of stuff, but still there's a lot of deficiency. So making sure that you're getting zinc, you're getting magnesium, getting potassium in through there. Dark leafy vegetables are all that. Your sea vegetables are also really, really good to help reduce inflammation. And when we're looking at vitamins again, so your B vitamins, your C, your A's are all super pro, that are very, very helpful in managing that. So you can get those with broccoli, asparagus, romaine lettuce, sweet bell peppers, parsley. Those are all going to be super rich in your B vitamins. And then we also want to make sure, again, checking your food sources too, because when we are not eating organic, or there's a lot of chemical exposures, and that's really helpful when you are looking at your personal care products, what your makeup that you're putting on, all those things can contribute to this kind of overload of toxins in your body and how your body can process. And so you're not constantly in a place of just kind of being suffocated in inflammation. Also trying to avoid foods, with gluten, with dairy, as also really being clear on, do you have food sensitivities? Do you have allergy triggers that are keeping you, those histamines just pumping through your body, keeping you in a constantly inflamed state? And really narrowing down what those are, going through a place where you're letting your body kind of have rest and have to heal itself, and then seeing what you can incorporate back in, and then what maybe you want to just kind of send away forever and ever. And then focusing on, again, like I said, making sure that we're in an alkaline state, that we're not in an acidic state. And you can do this really simply by testing your saliva and urine and stuff like that, with some strips into there. Easy to do. Again, I have a whole chart that I support my clients in, where they kind of have just a chart where it says okay, these are all, and on a spectrum of the most alkaline to the most acidic, and just finding a balance. We tend to say, and I'll go over this in a little bit more depth in a couple weeks time, but when people are really inflamed, they almost want to be eating more of 80 to 90% of an alkaline diet. And then once we've kind of managed and they've stayed stable with their pH, then it can be more of around 60 or 70%. So it's people always think oh, I'm doomed. I'm going to be eating carbohydrates. I'm not going to, but there's so many good, wonderful foods that are delicious that you can eat to support, so that your body can heal itself. So you're not constantly in pain, inflamed, and totally exhausted and through there. And what are some great herbs? So, okay, really good. You guys can jot these down. I'll make sure that you guys can kind of get this email. So herbs and spices, and this is a great way to just, sprinkle these throughout the day, put these in your water, and it's just kind of giving yourself these great nutrition. So unrefined sea salt, so that's your Himalayan sea salt, your pink sea salt, really good. Apple cider vinegar, super great. You're thinking it's, apple cider vinegar that's acidic. It's actually very alkaline, super great to do. That's such a good thing to have in a cup of warm water, maybe 30 minutes before you eat. Really good. It helps with your digestion, skin, everything. Peppermint essential oil is a really good one. Ginger is great. Ginger and turmeric are they're like this. They go together. That ginger with the turmeric and black pepper makes it more bioavailable, so your body can take it in a little bit easier. So ginger, turmeric, basil, onion, cayenne, cinnamon, cumin, curry is super good. Dillweed is good. Garlic's good. Oregano is an excellent herb. Cardamom, paprika, mint, and garam masala is really good too. Those are all excellent herbs to help out with inflammation. When we're thinking of nuts and seeds, some really good ones are pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, sesame seeds, almonds, macadamia nuts, cashews, peanut, pecans, walnuts, Brazil nuts. Those are high in selenium, really good for your thyroid too. You should be having about 2 to 4 a day. Coconut flakes, coconut butter. And then we're thinking, and I'm gonna go into this at depth next week when we talk about fats, and you guys are hopefully gonna do a clean out and make sure that you kick out the bad fats. But flaxseed oil, coconut oil, cold pressed, olive oil, pumpkin seed oil, macadamia oil, and avocado oil good. And I'll give you guys, when you guys get the email from me, you'll get an email where it has, you know, the right cooking temperatures, because most people are cooking too high with their oils and they're oxidizing them, or they're coming in clear glass and they're getting rancid. So it's such an important thing that so many people are not cooking with the right plus. So let me know if you have any questions. And pop them on in. Thank you so much for staying on. Hopefully this has been super helpful. And if you guys are listening back and if you have any questions, pop them on in. And again, and make sure if you're not on the email list that you get on the email list, and you can do that by just grabbing a free blueprint that I have, the painfreebodyblueprint.com. Just go there and sign up. If you're interested in getting a little bit more support, or you're saying like, oh yeah, I'm kind of struggling with that, or I'm kind of struggling with that, or I'd like a little bit support, and you want to drop on a strategy session, I'm happy to do that. It's complimentary, and you can just go to freedomfrompainnow.com and sign up. And then you and I can jump on a call and we can go in a little bit deeper. So let me give you kind of a little preview of what we're going to be going over the next 4 weeks together. So next week, we're going to be talking about fats. So how you can eat pain and inflammation away when it comes to getting your fat ratios and types right. This is super important, game changer. It's like the foundational brick when I'm working with clients who want to get pain-free, want to get their energy back and back to the activities they love. This is like the key foundational kind of nutrition piece for any place that I start with clients. Also, another one is food sensitivities, and we're going to be looking at week 2. So how to identify food sensitivities and why they're the reason that's keeping you sick, sore, and swollen. And then week 3, we're going to talk about, this is a big one, blood sugar balancing, and how sugar spikes shockingly and silently are causing you pain, sucking your energy, and increasing your belly fat around the middle. And I was talking to a client this morning, and we were talking about, monitoring your blood sugars. And she was just like, oh, I just thought you would only do that with diabetics. And I was like, I think that's the biggest fallacy, is so many people aren't monitoring it right. But people that may even look a little bit, look thinner, look heavier, they're not necessarily like what you would think of. When people think of blood sugar, they always think, oh, that person's diabetic. And we'll be talking about that in depth by, why monitoring your blood sugar is so important, and really being tuned in to what foods serve you and what foods may spike you. And like I said, it's never a forever thing, but to know kind of how to eat to serve your body, because blood sugar imbalances, developing insulin resistance is so harsh on the body. When you're thinking about pain, when you're thinking about joint health, when you're thinking about energy, you're thinking of brain function, so important to have your blood sugar dialed in and making sure that you're not all over the map. And unfortunately, sorry, this is like such a passionate thing for me. When you go to the doctor and you're below, 120, or, your fasting is a certain thing, it's like, that's really, they miss a lot of markers. And even if you may look okay on that snapshot, what they're missing is the spikes going up and down. And when those spikes are going up and down, you're still doing damage to your blood vessel lining. You're still doing damage to your retinas. You're still doing damage to your kidneys, to your heart, all those different things, doing to your brain, to your gut. And so many people are having a conversation with someone else, and she's like, her dad unfortunately passed away, and she was an undiagnosed diabetic. So the damage can still happen, even though you may not see it or may not feel it. So we'll be going into that in depth, and I'm really excited to share that for you. And then week 4, bone health, bone and joint health. We'll be talking how to eat, move, and think right to avoid osteoporosis, falls, fractures, and annoying arthritis. And I'll be talking about the test you can trust. I know a lot of people just think it's all about the DEXA. I'm going to tell you why it's not. The truth about calcium and the under the radar bone depleting drug interactions that may be going on, and then what your doctor may not be looking for and should. So it's all about giving you guys the tools, empowering you to have conversations, to take action. So again, you can get back to the activities that you love, that you have the energy, and you're not stuck in a place where, you're in pain, you're achy, you're anxious, you're snapping, and you're grouchy because you don't feel your best, and you're just not living, the life that you want to lead. So thank you so much for being on, and I will see you guys next week at 5 p.m. and we'll be talking about how you can eat your pain away by eating the right fats. All right, see you later. Bye.